And that is when the whole cinema just went Hi everyone, welcome back to An Artist Travels. I'm Nikki and today we're going to be discussing the Joker. I need to preface this video actually by admitting a little secret, and that is the fact that before I saw the Joker, and I saw the Joker last night, I had never before seen a Joker movie. Very stressful to admit. Like, wow, yeah, I have not seen Heath Ledger in the role of the Joker. I have nothing to compare this movie to. My opinion is that if you're making a good movie, it needs to be good regardless of who is aware of all the history. Obviously, there's like some exceptions to that rule.
Because if you're watching a film that's like, I don't know, a sequel, then it's probably helpful to have seen the prequel. But for me, because this movie is in a way removed from the rest of the world, like it should make sense to somebody who's a Joker newbie like myself. I'm very happy to report that it did make sense.
There are some things that undoubtedly I did not pick up on. And I don't want everyone commenting telling me that I did. You can if you want to. It's just about how I found it as a Joker virgin. A really big theme that's within the film, and that is this whole exploration of mental illness, the role that society plays in creating these criminals. And it was quite, you know, it's a haunting film, and it's sort of psychological exploration into the role everyone plays, especially I would say things like the demonization of like the working class, and how like people with like less opportunities and less privileges are subject to mental health cuts, less money, like working in jobs that don't respect them, being at the mercy of these sort of like upper class sort of people who just don't really care and have made it, and they look down at the rest of society and call them clowns. The thing with Joker's character that was interesting was that he already had condition. He was already like not in a great like mental state, so he's going to see a therapist, he's already like really depressed and and so everything that happens throughout the movie to him, it's kind of like dominoes, they just pile on top of each other. So it's kind of like the problem was already there, and everything that happened afterwards was a trigger. So it's not like he was, you know, totally completely fine and then a bad situation happened and then he was like, I'm going to become a psycho killer now. It was kind of like he was already like unhinged. It kind of starts making you think like, okay, so obviously there are people who are like more vulnerable, but is it then our fault that we add all these triggers? But whose fault is it really? Because would that have happened anyway with a separate set of triggers? Does that make sense? So it was interesting. It was kind of like, how much responsibility can you take on for an individual's action, and how much responsibility do they have? Because at the beginning I was very much like, I know this is a Joker origin story, and because I was just being stubborn, I was like, I mean, like, horrible stuff happens to everyone, we can't all just become psycho killers. But then like more and more things happened, and then you were like, oh babe, Jaquan, my man, you know. I don't understand, but like it was like I empathize with what you're going through right now. So that was really, really sad. And there's a part where he's writing down on a piece of paper, and he's like, the hardest part of having a mental illness is everyone wants you to pretend that you don't. It's something like that. Like everyone expects you to behave as if you don't, and that was like, woo! So yeah, so there's like a massive element throughout the film talking about mental health and like how we let down people with poor mental health. That for me was like, it's a good point. It needs to be talked about, and we need solutions to these things. So like that was good. I enjoyed. Such good film criticism, you know, like it was good. Well done. I did warn you, this isn't your typical fit. This is Nikki eating grapes and talking about the Joker. There were different elements to it that I found interesting. One element that really annoyed me throughout the movie, Arthur, who is our Joker, he meets this woman in his like flat, and they hit it off. They meet in an elevator, and then they have like a little discussion. She seems to think that he is an interesting individual, you know, someone a bit different. And then she comes to a comedy gig of his where he kind of like chokes, but then it ends up going really well. It's implied that they have sex, and then they have a little relationship going. And what really, I don't know, why am I peeling this grape? Anyway, what really annoyed me throughout this thing was she just had no personality. She was not developed, and I was just sitting there in the cinema like, it's no one else getting really annoyed by like this random woman who's just like appeared in his life, and it's like there at his side when his mother is in hospital. I don't understand what she sees in him, because they didn't bother developing it. So I was like, what is going on? I just put that down to like bad character development. And then And then, like literally everyone under the age of 20, don't hate me. Basically, it turns out that their relationship wasn't even a thing, and it's basically implied, heavily implied, that he just made up the entire thing. That this whole scenario has been him like just fantasizing in his head. And he goes into her apartment and he's just sitting there, and then like she walks out and she's like, what are you doing here? The second she said that line, I was like, fudge, they don't know each other, they don't know each other, they don't know each other, they don't know each other. So this isn't me like bragging and being like, I figured it out. I only figured it out like 2 seconds ahead of everyone else, because she then goes, wait, I've seen you in the elevator. Aren't you the guy who I bumped into in the elevator? Like, what are you doing here? You're in the wrong apartment. That is when the whole cinema just went, oh, fudge, they never knew each other. And I was like, did we not get that from the line? No, okay. And then it all made sense, and then I wasn't annoyed anymore, because I was like, oh, that's why she's underdeveloped, because she like literally did not exist in his life. No complaints. It was, yeah, it was cool. That was really cool. Love stuff like that. Love stuff like that. It did have like its detriments. So for example, when he finds out that his mother was also had issues and was basically like very delusional, I was like, but was she delusional, or was it the rich Waynes of the world who sort of like gaslighted her, and they were like, oh well, like that never really happened, and like faked a whole adoption certificate? I thought could have been a really cool plot twist. I'm just saying, it's possible. They got lots of money, they got lots of power. I don't know why. Yeah, it's possible, you know. Like, why am I talking? Why are you running? Why are you running? So another thing, this is just a really funny anecdote that happened when I was watching. There's a scene towards the end of the movie, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, where basically he gets invited onto this like talk show. The Joker's only really invited because they want to take the mick out of his like comedic storytelling. Oh, that's really sad. Slight commentary on Britain's Got Talent though, can I just say? Because the reason I feel like a lot of people love Britain's Got Talent is because like, obviously there's a lot of talent, but then also there's a lot of like stuff where people just laugh at that. You know, when you get those comedians that aren't funny, and then the entertainment just becomes the fact that they're not funny. You know what I'm talking about. So there's this part where he's on the talk show, and then you're like, oh fudge, like maybe he's gonna kill himself like live on television, like maybe that's gonna, because there's been like little seeds planted along the way that have insinuated that he might just want to like kill himself while he's on the show. Anyway, the music starts crescendoing, he starts like staring into the camera, it's all getting very, very creepy. We all know some awful murder's gonna go down, because by this point he's like committed a lot of murders. Like he literally just stabbed a guy to death with a pair of scissors, like straight through the eye. Oh, it was horrible. Anyway, so crescendo, getting really creepy, everyone's getting really scared, we're all tense, we're on the edge of the seats, we're like butt clenching seat time, and then I kid you not, the lights above us start flickering, and at this point I'm like, hang on, is this a thing? Is this cinema stroke theatre, like what's going on? The lights above us start flickering, and then the massive theatre screen that we're watching this on just starts and then cuts out. At that point, 4 people walk into the cinema, like into our cinema like viewing, and at this point everyone's like, is the Joker in the cinema? Are we gonna die? What's going on? Like, what is happening? Like, people thought there was a bomb scare. Like, is there like someone with a knife inside here? Like, what is going on? We think what happened in the end was essentially that someone was ill, so they got taken out of the cinema screen. But fully, they stopped the entire film. Like, the screen was blank. We were all sat in complete terrified silence. Guys, it was the worst point in the movie for that to happen. Honestly, it was so scary. But anyway, it ended up being fine, and yeah, they just continued the movie after a little bit. I thought it was quite unrealistic, and I feel like everyone I've mentioned this to has been like, yeah, but it was the 70s/80s, dude, like that would have happened. Is like the fact that, major spoiler, he shoots Murray like live on television, and I was like, how did Mandan get a gun onto this talk show set? Like how, like not even a pat down? So it was a long time ago. Gosh, yeah. Yeah, because I feel like security got massive after 9/11, right? So I don't know what it was like before, but clearly he got into a whole gun onto the jokes. I felt like there was a tiny little scene at the end that, you know, wasn't necessary. You know, when he's like dancing in the asylum after he potentially killed his therapist. Quite interesting. Kind of brings it full circle into like his whole experience with therapy. I'm so sorry if the lighting is completely different. In fact, the lighting will be different. My camera died and it's like an hour later, so now I'm recording and the sun's gone down a little bit, so I'm sorry if it's dark. Where's my tea? It's just there. Give me one sec. So we were talking about the ending quite fittingly. So there were a couple of things. So I didn't pick up on this at all. So you know there's a little kid whose parents die, like the Waynes die. So it turns out the little kid is Bruce Wayne and he grows up to be Batman. And there's like blood splatter all over his face. And it's like, oh fam, he's now witnessed this travesty. Obviously Bruce Wayne is Batman. Actually it inspires him to do good. So I didn't know this. I didn't see that massive thing. That's like super important because I didn't realize that that was Bruce Wayne who was Batman. As I said, I haven't watched any other Joker film, so I was like, okay. But so let's strip that aside. Let's, you know, how I saw it, seeing it in the cinema was essentially, I thought that little kid was going to grow up to be a serial killer. I thought that that was like what we were perpetuating. It's a little bit like Dexter, the TV show, bear with me. You know how like the boy is born in blood, and because he sees the death of his mother and he's splattered with blood as well, very similar, he grows up to be a serial killer. And it's that kind of like nurture nature kind of thing. Like, was it in him from like a young age? Like, is it possible to reverse what he's seen? Do we choose to become good or to become bad? This is an Oscar-worthy film in terms of like, it's Jaquan is getting that, or like he's definitely getting a nomination. I feel like he's getting the Oscar. The film is yeah, it's going there. And that performance, a boy. But I feel like he's done some deep method. Like, we came out of that and my friend was like, I hope he went home, he had some good sleep, he had some good time with God, and he had some good time with the fam, he had some good sex. Like, we hope he just had a good life after shooting that, because like, damn, like, had some food, you know, just really just took time to reconnect, find Jesus, you know, all those great things, because whew, that's a tough role, a harrowing role, which he did very well. Again, I haven't seen Heath Ledger, I'm sorry, I'm not here to compare, I'm just saying I think he did a phenomenal job. And because there's such a legacy behind the Joker, like, that must be such a difficult role to take on, but he did it so well. That laugh, oh my gosh, there were so many points where like, as the audience, like the audience would laugh at his laugh.
Right, not all the time, but just some moments you'd be like, wait, well, what's going on? And then it was really awkward because then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm literally laughing at someone. But that's someone with, that's a condition, like, it's not, you know, like, that's not their comedy. So it was like, it's a weird thing where the film made you laugh at people, but I don't think that was the intent. It was weird, but then it made you question, like, oh my gosh, is this how we treat people with different conditions, and like, da. So it really did make you think. But yeah, that was just something that was quite uncomfortable. Like, when people were laughing, it was like, wait, can we laugh? What's, that really, the tension.
Like, the moral message of the movie is not subtle at all. It is very much about like how we need to treat people better and how we need to have compassion and empathy for humans. But I mean, as far as moral messages go, that's a really good one, so it's fine if you're not too subtle. But there were some moments where he's like, this is what happens when you do this and you do this, and he's shouting at Wayne in the bathroom, and I was like, well, this is very blunt, you know. I wanted to say, oh yeah, okay, so there's a bit at the end where he gets arrested and then he gets dragged out of the police car and he stands on top of the car, and then he's surrounded by all the people. They all support him and he's just there like, way, and then there's the really creepy like Joker smile. I actually felt happy. How weird is that? How weird is that? Oh, it was weird because throughout the movie he'd do a really atrocious thing and then you'd see him in the next scene like dancing and you'd be like, oh, what a sweetie. And I was like, wait, hang on, no. I felt happy because I was like, he's finally found his people. But now looking back on that, I'm like, yeah, but his people were like murderers. That's not good. Those were my thoughts on Joker. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for, if you've sat with me throughout this whole discussion, thank you so much for joining me. Please let me know below whether, like, how you felt about the Joker. So like, 1, did you enjoy it? And like 2, were there any things where you were like were you like me? Did you like pick up on the whole like woman? Like, were you getting annoyed? Like, did you know? Do you have like any interesting theories? I know some people are like, was the whole thing imagined? Or like my little conspiracy theory where I'm like, but maybe his mom didn't make it up, and like da. And it's weird coming into it from the perspective of like not knowing the Joker canon and like obviously the whole point of this movie was the Joker backstory, whereas for me I didn't have that prior knowledge about the villain. So for me it was just a good movie, like a really enjoyable movie that was shot beautifully and performed beautifully, and I had like really interesting morals, but it wasn't like that for me. But anyway, comment below how you found it and whether you had a different perspective on the whole thing. I'd be really interested to hear. And thank you so much for joining me on An Artist Travels, and I will see you next week. I've created a schedule now. I post once a week and on Fridays. So I will see you next week, and I'll see you next Friday. Have a great week. This is the bit every YouTuber cuts out, you know, when you have to say bye and then you have to like get up and turn the camera off, and then it's like all weird.